Hello, doing a quick review for the movie Monuments Men. My previous one was rejected by YouTube for being too long, so I should just do a quick shorter one. I enjoyed the film overall, but it had its problems, and to me the problem was a bit of a showstopper in terms of passing this on as a recommendation. First off, I love the concept of the film. The story of the Monuments Men is just so darn interesting, and hearing it was getting a big screen adaptation, it had me really psyched, to the point I was disappointed when it got pushed back to February. As you know, I didn't want to wait, but seeing how crowded the December movie field was, I certainly can understand that. The characters were great, and they had great actors playing them. My biggest surprise actually came during the first trailer, where all of a sudden at the end it was Bill Murray there, and from a marketing perspective, I thought that they would have wanted to have Bill Murray earlier, because Bill Murray's projects are rarer, as he does not want to spend his time working on projects that don't meet his standards, or that just aren't interesting. So to me, that would have been something that hey, this movie is good enough that it's got Bill Murray's interest, and he doesn't do that for everything. We don't need to drop any names here, but so I almost made me wonder at the time if he had this agreement with the studio that his likeness would only be used a limited amount in the promotion of this movie. But no, he did a good job. Matt Damon did a good job. George Clooney did a good job. Cate Blanchett did a good job. Ron Goodman did a good job. And I feel terrible that I didn't have the other three main actors' names available. I'm going to keep this review as spoiler-free as possible. There may be one thing that in the plot that is a spoiler. If you don't know the history of World War II, I'll just agree that, and that was, the Allies did have pressure with the Russian invasion, and how Europe will be divided up, particularly with Stalin's aggression. So that is touched on the movie, but that leads into my issue with the movie, is that it needed another rewrite. They touched on the issue of the Russians coming from the east towards the American, British, Canadian, and Australian, New Zealand, etc. Allied forces coming from the west towards Germany, and that was they touched on it as a difference that the Russians had dispatched orders that art was to be looted, that Russia had suffered immensely in the Soviet invasion and occupation, so Stalin viewed that as acceptable war, or booty. And the thing was, the Monument Men were putting together our team to preserve art for the fact that it is art and it is a part of culture, so that as a culture, it did not belong singularly to anyone, that it was a sort of spiritual thing. I was at the Detroit Institute of Arts a few weeks ago, and I certainly can understand that feeling. One painting got my attention, and it touched me. It was Vincent van Gogh's painting. It's two men. It's two men working in a forest. But when I saw it, I came at it from an extreme left angle, and it was great. You could see the ridges and valleys of the paint that had just been lathered on there to get this effect. And it reminded me of astronomy, because I had a telescope growing up, and my parents actually went ahead and got me better than just a standard or cheap refractor. They actually went and got a mirror-based reflector telescope, and that was, a lot of fun as a kid. And just the first moment that I actually took that telescope and pointed it at the moon, and all of a sudden the moon wasn't flat. The shadows at the terminus were going through the valleys of the craters, and you could see this jagged surface, and the shadows were giving it depth, and the moon was no longer just a flat disk there. And that powerful moment, I had it again and about a year ago when I went outside in the middle of winter with a pair of binoculars to try to see something. The moon was out, and then I looked at it again, same texture. Took me back to the moment Van Gogh's painting did that to me, with just that uneven texture. It's just all of a sudden, it moved me. So I am, well, not like a art historian or a buff on that. I certainly can appreciate the beauty of art, and I was sympathetic to the message of protect art, which is ironic considering the situation and some of the trouble that the DIA is in with facing Detroit's bankruptcy, and the fact that the art is actually held in trust by the city of Detroit, and various people always just keep delaying a solution to that just for a little more leverage. But that's politics. I should stay out of that, otherwise I'll get going. So, getting back to the movie, it felt weak. It needed another rewrite. It was an interesting setup of just life events happening to these people in this extraordinary situation. That there are some events that are like the high point of your day. There are other things that are just mundane, and that was one thing I got. The movie was trying to impress that it was, a job, but a very, extraordinary job for that. But the movie seemed to go back and forth tonally between a tone of older war films, particularly pre-1960, and newer ones post Saving Private Ryan. So there wasn't that good of a transition between in the feel. I felt a bit jerked back and forth. So that is just the thing, and my expectations for the movie are so high because it was going in with so much I loved in this thing of a very interesting war story, a story of a just cause and all that, and I guess this makes me worry that someone might see this movie and then be turned off from the story just because some of the filmmaking choices. But I know that just take a look at that and say that goes with every project. But I'm going to certainly recommend it to people if you are into anyone into war history or art. I think that this movie is worth seeing in like a matinee time. I know at some places the ticket prices get ridiculous. Where I went to see it, that I saw it for $6 a head, so that to me is reasonable, and I want the experience of seeing it on a big screen. That just, you just can't get that looking at a TV. It's a different experience for a movie, and that is one thing I'm always a little resigned about when I see this great movie that I've happened to miss for the rest of my life. It's just, I'm seeing it on a TV in a really would want to see it on a big screen for the best presence of the film, so that the film could speak the loudest and I would see the most of the film. Overall, I'm going to recommend that, if you're interested, grab it at matinee price, maybe second run, so it's still on the screen. Otherwise, this is certainly worth a rental or a loan from the library. Well, have a great evening, and I certainly hope that Google doesn't reject this one.